All right, you jabronis, let's cut the crap and dive right into this shit. We're talking Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. We got the Wikipedia page up and ready to rip this fucker wide open, see what juicy bits we can pull out.
Sounds like a plan.
You ready for this shit?
Oh, yeah. Always up for a good vaccine conspiracy theory.
No, fuck that. We're sticking to the facts here. No bullshit, just the raw truth.
All right, then, let's do it.
So this Udur Shahin dude, CEO of BioNTech, seems like he was the mastermind behind this whole operation. What's the deal with this guy?
Well, back in January 2020, when most people were still thinking COVID was just a bad flu, this guy Shahin was already shitting bricks looking at early reports from Wuhan.
Seriously?
Yeah, he was crunching numbers, realized this thing had the potential to be a global catastrophe.
So while everyone else was chilling, this dude was prepping for the apocalypse.
Pretty much, he immediately launched Project Lightspeed at BioNTech. Goal was to develop a vaccine ASAP.
Makes sense. But why the rush?
He knew they had to move fast, and he bet on their existing mRNA technology, which was a pretty risky move at the time.
Yeah. Hold on, back up a sec. mRNA, what the fuck is that?
Think of mRNA like a blueprint for your cells. It tells them how to make specific proteins. In this case, the mRNA vaccine was designed to tell your cells to make a harmless piece of the virus's spike protein.
So it's like showing your body the enemy's playbook before the game even starts.
Exactly. Gives your immune system a head start.
Pretty slick, but why so risky?
Well, mRNA vaccines were pretty new back then. They hadn't been widely used in humans before.
Oh, so this was like the beta test.
Kinda, yeah. There's a lot of uncertainty about how they would work.
Especially on a large scale. So what did this Shingai do next?
Well, he knew he needed a partner, someone with deep pockets and experience in bringing drugs to market. So he called up Pfizer.
Pfizer, huh?
Yeah, they had worked together on a flu vaccine project before.
So he thought they'd be down to clown.
You think so, right?
Or were they?
Nah, they turned him down flat. They didn't think the virus would be a big deal. Seriously, they thought it could be contained.
What a bunch of asshats.
I know, right? Talk about missing the boat.
So what did Shine do? Just give up and go home?
Hell no. This guy was determined. He went to Germany's drug regulator, the Paul Ehrlich Institute.
The Germans, those guys are usually pretty strict about this shit.
Yeah, they are, but they also know a thing or two about pandemics. They were a lot more receptive to Shahin's proposal, saw the urgency of the situation.
So they gave him the green light.
Not so fast. They told him he needed to do toxicology studies.
To make sure the vaccine wasn't going to turn people into zombies or some shit.
Pretty much, but those studies usually take months.
And they didn't have months.
Exactly. Time was of the essence.
So what do you do?
Instead of developing one vaccine candidate like everyone usually does, he decided to develop 20 different versions all at the same time.
20? Are you shitting me?
Nope. It was a massive undertaking. But he figured it was worth the risk.
This guy was going all in.
They didn't have time to waste.
Okay, I see the hustle. But all this research and development's got to be costing a fortune. Who the fuck was paying for all this?
Well, remember, Fosun, that Chinese company, they were already interested in BioNTech's work. Saw an opportunity to jump on the COVID vaccine train.
The Chinese always thinking ahead.
They signed a deal with BioNTech for the Chinese market and invested $135 million.
Damn, that's a lot of dough.
Then you had the European Commission and the European Investment Bank chipping in another 100 million euros.
And what about the German government?
They were like, here's 375 million euros, go save the world.
So basically everyone was throwing money at the problem. Except for the good old US of A.
Actually, Pfizer decided not to take any U.S. government funding for the vaccine development.
Really? Why?
They didn't want any bureaucratic delays or strings attached.
They were like, fuck the government, we got this.
And Pfizer ended up fronting BioNTech another $190 million.
Holy shit, they were writing blank checks at this point.
They were all in, and they needed to be. They started clinical trials in April 2020, had some promising initial results by October. And by November, bam, phase 3 results showed the vaccine was 95% effective.
95%? That's insane.
It was a game changer.
So what the hell is actually in this miracle juice?
Remember that mRNA we talked about? That's the key ingredient here. The Pfizer BioNTech vaccine uses a modified form of mRNA called modRNA, which is specifically designed to be used in vaccines.
Hold on, you're losing me with all this science talk. Just tell me, is this shit going to make me grow a third arm or something?
Yeah, you're good. The modRNA is packaged inside tiny fat bubbles called lipid nanoparticles. These nanoparticles protect the mRNA and help it get inside your cells where it can do its magic.
So it's like a tiny delivery system, sneaking this mRNA shit into my cells.
Kind of like a Trojan horse.
Okay, that makes sense. But how the fuck do they even make this stuff?
It's a 3-stage operation that spans multiple continents.
Seriously.
First, they have to make the DNA that codes for the spike protein. They do that in the U.S. by growing it in bacteria.
Bacteria, that's kind of fucked up.
Well, bacteria are pretty good at making proteins, so they're often used in biotechnology.
All right, so what happens after the bacteria make the DNA?
Then, they use that DNA to produce the mRNA, which happens in both the U.S. and Germany.
Oh, yeah?
Finally, they mix the mRNA with the lipid nanoparticles and package it all up into vials. That last step takes place in the U.S. and Belgium.
Global operation, huh?
Pretty much.
And then there's that whole thing about storing this vaccine at ultra-low temperatures.
Right. The Pfizer BioNTech vaccine has to be stored at 80 to negative 60 degrees Celsius.
Cooler than a witch's tit.
Yeah, something like that. It created a whole new set of logistical challenges.
Especially for countries that didn't have the infrastructure to handle those temperatures.
Exactly.
And that's colder than my ex's heart.
No wonder there were so many hiccups in the rollout.
It was a massive undertaking, especially compared to the Moderna vaccine, which could be stored at normal refrigerator temperatures.
Okay, so let's recap this shit before my brain explodes. We got a vaccine developed at breakneck speed, initially rejected by Pfizer, funded by everyone except the U.S. government, and requiring storage colder than a penguin's ass?
And that's just the beginning of the story. Holy shit, this is some seriously wild shit, man.
It is.
All right, we're just getting started, folks. We've got a lot more to uncover about this Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, so buckle up and get ready for part 2. All right, so we were talking about all the logistical bullshit with keeping these vaccines freezing their asses off.
Yeah, it's wild to think about all the hoops they had to jump through just to keep those vials cold.
But let's get back to the clinical trials. Did they just inject this shit into any random schmuck off the street? Or do they have like a target audience?
They actually focused on specific groups, to see how the vaccine worked in different populations.
Like who?
Well, for instance, they ran trials with pregnant women.
Hold the fuck up, pregnant women.
Yep.
That seems a little bit risky, don't you think?
It was a big decision for sure. You're basically giving a pregnant woman something that's never been tested on pregnant women before.
I bet those ladies were shitting themselves, wondering if their kid was going to come out with like a third eye or something.
Yeah. And it didn't stop there. They also conducted trials with kids, even those as young as 5 years old.
5-year-olds? Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Talk about a liability.
They even tested the vaccine on people with organ transplants.
Organ transplants?
Yeah, which is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
Those folks have suppressed immune systems, so figuring out if a vaccine even works for them is a whole different ballgame.
So they really put this vaccine through the ringer, huh?
Oh, yeah, they didn't mess around.
Did they find any, like, crazy side effects?
Thankfully, no. Mostly just the usual suspects, soreness at the injection site, fatigue, headache, that kind of stuff.
The same shit you get with any other vaccine.
Exactly. It's just your body being a little bitch.
So nothing too serious?
Nope.
What about allergic reactions? I heard people were freaking out about that.
There were a few cases, but they were extremely rare. We're talking like a handful of people out of millions who got vaccinated. And it was mostly people who already had a history of severe allergies.
Makes sense. You can't expect to shove your face in a beehive if you're allergic to bees. Exactly.
I bet the anti-vaxxers had a field day with this.
Oh, they were having a party. But we're not going to waste our time on those conspiracy theories.
Fuck those guys. Let's stick to the facts. So, who was first to approve this thing?
The UK, actually. They granted the vaccine emergency authorization back in December 2020. First country to do so after large-scale trials.
So they were the guinea pigs for the rest of the world.
Pretty much they were in a desperate situation.
And then the U.S. jumped on board.
A few weeks later.
And then everyone else was like, fuck it, let's do this.
It was a global vaccine free-for-all.
But didn't we talk about some shady shit going on behind the scenes, like that whole Pfizer-gate investigation?
Oh, yeah, that was a whole mess. Apparently, there were some questions about how Pfizer negotiated their deal with the European Union.
Like what?
Rumors of backroom deals and political maneuvering.
So basically, corruption and bullshit.
Pretty much it got so bad that there's actually a criminal investigation going on right now. Damn. So they might have saved the world. But they might have also been lining their pockets while doing it.
It's possible.
But at least the vaccine worked right.
That's the main thing.
And I'm sure Pfizer made a shit ton of money off of it.
Oh, yeah, billions.
Those Pfizer execs were probably swimming in champagne.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But weren't there multiple versions of the vaccine?
Yeah. Remember how BioNTech developed like 20 different vaccine candidates at the beginning?
Vaguely.
Well, they kept tweaking the formula, trying to optimize it even further. They even came out with a bivalent booster.
What the hell's a bivalent booster?
It basically targets two different strains of the virus at the same time.
Double whammy.
Yeah, like a 1-2 punch.
But what about all those new variants that kept popping up? Like Delta and Omicron.
That's where things got tricky. The original vaccine was designed to target the original strain, but then those new variants started popping up like weeds.
And some of them were pretty good at dodging the vaccine's defenses.
Especially Omicron, that little fucker was a real pain in the ass.
So what do?
They started working on updated versions of the vaccine that specifically targeted these new variants.
Like an arms race.
It was a constant battle trying to stay one step ahead of the mutating virus.
Did they ever catch up?
Eventually, yeah. They developed vaccines that targeted the Delta and Omicron variants.
But by then, the virus had already spread like wildfire.
People were getting tired of getting booster shot after booster shot.
Yeah, I can imagine. But wait a minute, we're forgetting something here. Remember those first doses?
Oh, yeah, the historical shit.
Didn't we talk about that yet?
Nope.
So who got the first jab?
Margaret Keenan, a 90-year-old grandma in the UK.
A grandma?
Yeah, she was the first person outside of a clinical trial to get the vaccine.
That must have been a pretty big deal.
It was a monumental moment. It
Yeah.
felt like the world was finally starting to fight back against this invisible enemy.
And then there's Sandra Lindsay, the nurse in New York who got the first shot in the U.S.
Right. She became a symbol of hope for all the healthcare workers.
Crazy to think about all this shit.
I know it feels like a lifetime ago.
But I bet there's still more to the story.
Oh, there's definitely more.
All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll jump back in. We got more ground to cover. This Pfizer BioNTech roller coaster ain't over yet. Okay, so we dove deep into the Pfizer BioNTech rabbit hole. Explored the science, the drama, the shady deals. What the hell did we learn from this whole clusterfuck?
Well, one thing's for sure. This whole saga totally revolutionized the vaccine game. They developed, tested, and rolled out a brand spanking new vaccine in under a year. It's unheard of. It's like they injected the whole process with steroids.
So is this the new normal now? Are we going to be pumping out vaccines for every little sniffle?
Hard to say for certain, but this whole pandemic definitely showed us what's possible. When the pressure's on and the money's flowing, we can crank out vaccines faster than we ever thought possible.
I guess desperation can be a hell of a motivator. But it wasn't just about speed. They were using that new mRNA technology too. Pretty cutting-edge stuff.
Oh, absolutely. mRNA vaccines are like the software of vaccines, easy to design, manufacture, and they've proven to be pretty damn effective. This pandemic put mRNA on the map big time, and it's going to be huge in future vaccines, not just for infectious diseases, but for things like cancer and autoimmune disorders, too.
So we're just at the beginning of the mRNA revolution. The shit's going to be everywhere.
It's a game changer for sure. But let's not forget the downsides. Remember that whole cold chain clusterfuck? That's a major roadblock for getting mRNA vaccines out there, especially in developing countries that don't have the fancy freezers to keep them at those crazy temperatures.
Yeah, not everyone has a cryo freezer the size of a Hummer sitting around.
Oh,
And even if they did, those mRNA vaccines are pricey as hell to produce.
totally. There's still a long way to go in terms of making them accessible and affordable, but the potential is huge, no doubt about it.
So did this pandemic show us we've finally figured out vaccines? Or are we just getting ourselves up for another shitstorm down the road?
It's a good question. We saw incredible speed and innovation with the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, but it's also highlighted how vulnerable we are in a world where diseases can spread like wildfire. We need to be ready for the next pandemic. And that means investing in research infrastructure, global cooperation. We can't afford to get caught with our pants down again.
Sounds like we dodged a bullet this time. But we might not be so lucky next time around. Pretty sobering thought.
It's a wake-up call for sure. This pandemic showed us that we're all in this together. What happens in one corner of the world can affect everyone. We've got to be ready to act fast and effectively, and that takes a global effort.
All right, you magnificent bastards. That wraps up our deep dive into the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. We went from early predictions to shady government deals, explored the science, the triumphs, the failures, maybe even found a sliver of hope. But this story doesn't end here. It's up to us to learn from this pandemic and figure out how to handle whatever the hell comes next. So stay informed, stay curious, and as always, don't be a dick. Peace out.